Welcome to the Deep Dive. Glad you could join us today.
Great to be here.
We're doing our usual thing today, taking a whole bunch of different sources,
Yeah.
articles, notes, you name it.
Yeah, looking at everything from new tech and investment shifts to politics and even workplace stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the idea is to pull out the key insights, find those connections you might miss,
To make sense of it all quickly.
help you get really well informed, basically.
Yeah.
Clear, engaging, hopefully.
Let's get into it.
All right, let's unpack this first one. We're starting with someone legendary, really. A vision that just transformed an industry.
You're talking about Fred Smith.
Fred Smith, yeah.
Yeah.
Founder of FedEx, recently passed away. People called him the heart and soul of the company.
And for good reason.
His big idea back in the 70s, overnight delivery, I mean, that was completely revolutionary then.
Totally changed the game. Before him, that just wasn't really a thing people expected.
Right. And that vision turned FedEx into this absolute behemoth, one of the world's biggest shippers.
A symbol of American innovation, global connection, all that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So his passing, it's a really significant moment for FedEx, obviously, but also for logistics as a whole.
It's amazing how one person's idea can reshape things so fundamentally and last for so long.
It really is.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a business plan. It was truly disruptive thinking.
Makes you wonder if we'll see that kind of long-term individual impact in the newer tech fields today, given how fast things move.
That's a really interesting question, and maybe a good transition, actually, from a legend who built a physical network to the younger generation building the digital foundations, the AI architects, you could say.
Right, like Alexander Wang.
Exactly. Alexander Wang, he's 28, founder and CEO of Scale AI, definitely one of the big names in Silicon Valley right now.
And Meta, Facebook's parent company, is involved.
Hugely involved. Reports say Meta's putting potentially up to $14 billion into a strategic partnership with Scale AI.
Wow, $14 billion. What exactly does Scale AI do?
They handle the really critical groundwork for machine learning, labeling and organizing massive, massive data sets.
So teaching the AI what it's looking at.
Essentially, yeah. Making the data usable, understandable for AI models. And that's absolutely crucial for Meta's ambitions in generative AI, the metaverse, all that data-heavy stuff.
So Wang's success really highlights the demand for that foundational AI work. It's not just about the flashy algorithm.
Precisely. You need that infrastructure.
Oh.
And it's not just happening in the U.S. either.
Okay.
Look at the UK. There's a startup called FedEx, AI company.
FedEx, right. Heard of them.
They're reportedly getting close to a $1 billion valuation.
And their focus is different, isn't it? More industrial?
Yeah, exactly. They specialize in AI-powered simulations for engineering and design. Think aerospace, automotive, energy.
Using AI to model and test things virtually?
Right. Optimizing performance,
Yeah.
efficiency, basically running countless tests in simulation before you build anything physical. It's incredibly powerful.
So that's a sign of the UK tech scene's strength in applied AI, merging AI with real-world physics, manufacturing.
I think so. It shows AI isn't just about software or language models. It's getting deep into physical engineering, too.
So if you connect the dots, Scale AI handling the data foundation, FedEx applying AI to complex physical problems.
Yeah.
It feels like we're seeing this rapid build-out of the whole AI stack, from data prep to highly specialized applications. It's moving fast.
So the takeaway for you listening, the infrastructure for what's next, whether it's getting packages across the world faster or building new AI tools that's being built now.
Often by these super focused companies led by people like Wang, it changes the picture of who the key players are.
Okay, so from that cutting edge tech, let's shift gears. Let's talk money, markets, investments.
Always dynamic.
And there's a bit of a surprise here. Some, maybe, cautious optimism in an area many had written off.
Oh, what's that?
SPACs, special purpose acquisition companies.
SPACs. They had a huge boom and then not so much. Regulation, criticism.
Exactly. They took a nosedive for about 2 years. Lots of talk about them being risky, chaotic.
Yeah.
But now we're seeing a cautious comeback.
Really? New filings, investor interest.
Yep. New filings, a bit more buzz. Analysts are saying maybe things are different this time, more transparency, maybe better quality deals, less speculation.
Guarded optimism, you said?
That's the phrase being used. Institutional investors, VCs. They seem interested again, looking for those alternative ways to take companies public.
It does raise the question, though, what is fundamentally different? Is it just market conditions, or have the structures really improved enough to avoid the past problems?
That's the billion-dollar question, I
Yeah.
suppose. Is the optimism warranted, or is it just capital searching for any avenue when IPOs are slow?
Time will tell on that one.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But speaking of unexpected investment stories, how about British pubs?
Pubs, like traditional
This
pubs.
is very same.
Mm.
Apparently these places, which lots of people thought were kind of declining assets, are now attracting fresh investment.
Interesting. Why the turnaround?
Few things seem to be driving it. Post-pandemic habits have stabilized, tourism's coming back, and they're rebranding. Not just pubs, but community hubs, lifestyle venues.
Repositioning themselves.
Plus, investors are seeing better margins using tech for marketing, maybe better operations, and land values are up, plus a shift towards more premium drinks.
So it's less about just selling pints and more of a property and hospitality strategy.
Seems like it. A new kind of property and hospitality play, as one source put it. Quite the shift.
Who would have thought? Pubs as the hot new investment.
It's a funny contrast, isn't it? High finance SPACs on one end, the local pub on the other, both seeing renewed interest.
Money finds its way.
It certainly does.
Yeah.
But sometimes where that money goes, especially in energy, gets tangled up in politics.
It happens often.
Take the CEO of Eni, the big Italian oil company, Claudio Descalzi. He gave this pretty provocative interview recently.
What did he say?
He basically slammed what he called political correctness in the energy sector.
Okay. Meaning what exactly?
He was defending Eni's ongoing investments in natural gas, exploration in Africa, arguing that energy security has to come before green idealism.
The security versus transition debate.
Right. It really taps into that tension, especially in Europe, with the whole Ukraine war situation and the energy crunch they faced.
It highlights those really tough choices governments and companies are facing. The ideal long-term path versus immediate practical needs for energy.
There often aren't easy answers there.
No, definitely not. It's a complex balancing act between climate goals and, keeping the lights on affordably.
And these geopolitical factors, they just keep sending ripples everywhere. Look at Chinese manufacturers.
How so?
Well, with Donald Trump leading in the polls for the 2025 U.S. election, they're apparently speeding up plans to deal with potential new tariffs, more trade barriers.
Diversifying their supply chains, moving production.
Exactly. Expanding more into Southeast Asia, Africa, Latin America. It's a direct reaction to the previous trade war policies and worries about what a second Trump term might bring.
So geopolitics is actively reshaping global manufacturing flows again.
Seems like it. A constant adjustment.
And that political influence hits other sectors too, right? Like healthcare.
Absolutely. There's apparently some anxiety among healthcare investors in the U.S. right now.
Over what?
A new government initiative to restructure a vaccine policy and oversight.
Okay. Restructuring can be disruptive.
Well, part of it involves appointing several people seen as vaccine skeptics to advisory roles.
I see. That raises concerns about politicization.
Exactly. Fears about politicized public health decisions, what it might mean for approvals, funding, even public trust.
And the market reacts?
Biotech, pharma stocks, they've reacted cautiously. Everyone's trying to figure out the potential impact. It just shows how quickly political shifts can sway market sentiment, especially in sensitive areas like health.
So tying this section together, it really drives home how interconnected everything is. Investment trends, local businesses like pubs, global energy policy, trade routes, even public health. They're all caught up in these larger economic and political currents.
Nothing exists in isolation, does it?
Not at all.
Okay, so for our final section, let's bring it down to the human level. How are these big trends hitting people directly? Work, opportunities.
Like the whole return to office thing?
Perfect example. The headlines shout about companies forcing everyone back.
Right. Lots of mandates announced.
But the reality seems, well, fuzzier, more nuanced.
Who so?
Reports suggest many firms issue these policies, but then there's little enforcement. Hybrid work just kind of continues quietly.
So the policy is one thing, the practice is another.
Seems like it. Some experts think the tough talk is often more about pleasing shareholders, projecting control, than actually changing how most people work day to day.
Interesting. So it's an ongoing negotiation, really. A tug of war between that desire for office presence and the reality of employee preference for flexibility.
Very much so. The story isn't over yet.
And it highlights that gap between what companies say publicly and what happens on the ground. Almost like a quiet acceptance that flexibility is here to stay, even if they don't shout about it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And sticking with that theme of stated values versus reality, there's this situation with a Wall Street Fellowship Program.
A prestigious one, backed by big firms.
That's the one. It's facing a pretty serious diversity backlash.
What are the criticisms?
The core argument is that, despite all the talk about inclusion, the selection process still heavily favors candidates from elite universities, privileged backgrounds.
So, not delivering on the diversity promise.
That's the claim. And there are even some internal reports suggesting some participants felt like tokens or were sidelined.
That reflects wider pressures in finance, doesn't it? The push for real action on diversity, not just lip service.
Absolutely. And the future of this specific program is apparently uncertain now. It really puts a spotlight on that challenge.
So the big picture from these last 2 points.
I think it shows that even with all the tech advancements and market shifts we've discussed, the human element is still crucial.
How we work, who gets a fair shot, whether companies actually live up to their values.
Exactly. That remains a really critical and often difficult area for everyone. It's where policy meets people.
A constant work in progress.
Definitely. So, wow, we've covered a lot today in this deep dive.
We really have, from Fred Smith's legacy
To Alexander Wang and the AI foundations.
the surprising return of SPACs and pubs,
The impact of geopolitics on energy and trade.
and finally, those nuances in the workplace and diversity efforts.
Yeah, quite the journey. And the whole point, as always, is trying to connect these dots for you, seeing the bigger picture.
Right. And it makes you think. These shifts we talked about, like SPACs coming back cautiously or Chinese factories moving, they seem like big, abstract things. But I'd ask you, listening, how might those currents eventually touch things closer to you? Could they influence, say, the future of a local business or community space? Or maybe the next tech product you use?
That's a great question. Because, as we saw today, it's all a web, isn't it? A CEO's opinion on energy policy in Italy.
Or a young AI founder's massive deal.
It can ripple outwards. It affects investments, maybe the price of goods eventually. It really makes you wonder what other headlines that seem totally unrelated might actually be connected if you scratch the surface.
What other connections are hiding in plain sight? Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Thanks, everyone.